Peggle 2!
E3, also known as the Electronic Entertainment Expo, is a yearly gaming trade show where companies, developers, and publishers get to flex their muscles and show what kind of shit they've been working on recently. The event has been going on for over 25 years now, and has in a lot of ways been considered as the video game equivalent of Christmas, with just how much new stuff comes out of these yearly. While it's sadly yet understandably opting out this year due to real-world circumstances, it feels like companies as a whole aren't taking the event nearly as seriously anymore. More and more companies have been dropping out of giving press conferences over the years, and as a whole, it just seems like companies would rather present their new information in their own way without the potential risk of technical difficulties, or by just hosting an event live. While I can understand wanting to do this, I love E3, and I love watching yearly E3 presentations. Seeing what kind of outline companies have for the next year or so is fun, and it gives us fans something to be excited for in the future. So today, I've decided to take a look back at E3's humble origins, as well as talk about some of my favorite E3 moments throughout the years. So slip on those virgin goggles as we take a look at just how many E's we can 3. E3 started out in the far-off year of 1995, where it was created as a way to give the video game industry an event for itself due to its rapid growth and popularity. Originally, new video games would be shown off at the Consumer Electronics Show, or CES for short. But game devs never felt like the vendor organizers gave the industry the attention it deserved, which helped to play a part in the creation of E3. Because of the somewhat poor representation, many companies and developers would slowly drop out of attending the trade show over the years, and it was only until event organizer Pat Farrell came up with the idea of a dedicated trade event for the industry itself that video games would get their proper chance to shine, thus creating the first E3, which took place on May 11th to May 13th, 1995 at the Los Angeles Convention Center. I could easily go more in depth on the first E3 as a whole, but to keep this history somewhat short, I'll leave it at the first event being a massive success with over 40,000 attendees present at the expo. From there, E3 would be held yearly in the summer, primarily at the Los Angeles Convention Center, with a slight exception being E3's 1997 and 1998 being at the Georgia World Congress Center, as it slowly transformed from an event mostly for investors to an experience for fans of video games as a whole. E3 to many is personified through the moments and announcements from the press conferences that stick in the minds of the consumer for one reason or another. It would obviously be impossible to talk about every moment synonymous with the overall E3 experience, but there are still plenty I want to take a look at, and for me, E3 has always been known for bringing excitement and hype first and foremost. So let's take a look at some of those moments first, starting with one of the hypest series of all time, Super Smash Bros. Smash Bros. Has always had a great E3 presence in my opinion. Melee's debut trailer simply had to play its iconic intro to get people excited. Brawl's reveal was an amazing trailer and was one that I rewatched a ton as a kid, if only to witness the beauty of Solid Snake being revealed to be in the same game as Pikachu. But for me, one of my favorite Smash-related trailers of all time was the reveal trailer for Super Smash Bros. For Wii U and 3DS. The trailer itself is really good and was a great introduction to the game, but I'm mostly fond of this one specifically due to it being what really pushed me into actively following gaming news. Prior to this, I would mostly just get gaming news through vague ramblings on internet articles or by just watching a commercial, but after this trailer, I followed everything I could about this game's development, and it even pushed me to watch more general Nintendo Directs. So, overall, I really like Smash's E3 trailers. But obviously, I can't just talk about Smash at E3 without talking about Super Smash Bros. Ultimate's Everyone is Here trailer. People have said it before, but I'll reiterate just how well this trailer is constructed. It starts off really standard and just builds and builds in exciting character reveals like Ice Climbers and the Pokemon Trainer, until all hell breaks loose with Snake returning to the series as that glorious tagline of Everyone is Here comes into frame, with Pichu being revealed seconds later just to let you know that they weren't fucking joking. Not only that, but the rest of this game's segment during E3 2018 went into major depth about the game, ending with the reveal of Ridley, the character that defied all odds and actually became playable. Overall, this is just an amazing reveal for this game, and it completely stole the show from everything else at the time. There are plenty of other hype moments from E3's history. I always liked God of War's high budget and cinematic reveal at Sony's E3 2016 conference. Killer Instinct made a glorious comeback and turned an incredibly mediocre E3 2013 press conference for Microsoft into something that was actually kind of decent. And knowing Cuphead was a game that existed was fantastic and painful considering just how long it took this game to come out. But obviously, one of the biggest E3 moments and simply one of the biggest game reveals in general was of course the announcement of The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess. So flashback to 2004, The Legend of Zelda The Wind Waker was the most recently released Zelda game at the time, but it was constantly criticized since its reveal for its much more cartoony art style, especially compared to the Space World 2000 tech demo which showed what a Zelda game with realistic graphics could look like on the GameCube. As Nintendo's 2004 E3 press conference was coming to a close, Reggie slaps the audience with an "Oh, and one more thing." Realistic locations are shown as the trailer begins to play, Conan the Barbarian music swells, enemies are shown, hype builds, Link charges in on a horse, the crowd goes crazy. Yeah, I think Nintendo was sorry. The trailer itself is amazing and exactly what fans were demanding at the time. But Nintendo wasn't done there, because as the trailer fades out, Shigeru Miyamoto enters the stage with a sword and shield in hand as the crowd bursts into cheers. This is how you reveal a game. Game devs, take notes. While large and grandiose reveals are sure to bring large doses of adrenaline and excitement, I also really enjoyed the more subdued and quieter reveals. The Final Fantasy VII Remake's announcement trailer is one that comes to mind when talking about things like this. Keep in mind, a remake of Final Fantasy VII was something that fans had demanded of for years, and after pointless tech demos and simple ports, Square busted out the big guns for E3 2015. The trailer itself is everything for Final Fantasy VII fans, yet still interesting for those that don't know anything about the game. Just seeing Cloud with his Buster Sword slowly walk into the frame as the music rises and the word remake proudly appears. Wow. This trailer is incredible, emotional, and was also horribly timed considering just how far off the actual release date was. On the topic of other heartfelt E3 moments, I really like it when developers can just be themselves or deliver some impactful words to audiences. Akumi Nakamura being her joyful self, Keanu Reeves casually just talking about Cyberpunk, and Reggie giving a short but sweet introduction are just some of the little things that remind us that real people work on the things we play. I feel like this can especially be seen when Ubisoft developer Davide Soliani began to cry tears of joy from seeing Shigeru Miyamoto happily present and talk about his game. These moments help to provide real happiness and emotion to these press conferences, which are, in truth, just meant to be big advertisements. But I'm so glad these moments exist. However, I'm glossing over the real best moments of E3 when companies decide to do shit like this. In my opinion, an E3 press conference isn't a real conference if the companies don't somehow find a way to embarrass, disappoint, or just fail to appeal their general audiences, and man, we got a lot of stinkers we can talk about here. Embarrassment existed as far back as the very first E3, when Sega made the horrible mistake of saying the Sega Saturn was available right after the press conference, which ultimately just angered retailers and failed to woo fans considering the console's price was 400 buckaroos. I can understand why Sega may have thought that people would be more enticed into immediately being able to purchase a brand new console, but the sad reality is that consoles need some time to simmer in the minds of the consumer in order to motivate them to consider a purchase. In the end, this was a terrible move for Sega, and it really only helped to steer people more towards the PlayStation, especially when a Sony executive simply walked up to the stage's podium and said $299 in response to the Saturn's price tag.
$299.
On the topic of Sony and pricing their consoles, we certainly can't overlook how the PS3 was being priced at 600 bones at release for some godforsaken reason. Overall, Sony just ended up throwing too much junk onto this thing that skyrocketed the price, which actually helped to boost Microsoft into the lead of the 7th generation's console war, prior to Nintendo releasing that little white slab currently collecting dust in your entertainment center right now. Nintendo has had plenty of embarrassing moments during their E3 press conferences. Obviously, everyone looks towards the Wii Music and Skyward Sword demonstrations for not functioning nearly as well as Nintendo might have hoped. And overall, there's just a lot of moments throughout the Wii and DS era that really only existed to try and appeal towards the casual crowd. Look, I know Reggie's My Body is Ready line is iconic and all that, but that still doesn't make up for the fact that Nintendo was literally just weighing this man on stage in front of thousands of people. Eventually, Nintendo dropped out of giving press conferences entirely in favor of their direct formats, which I'm a much bigger fan of. Since they've switched their presentation styles, Nintendo's barely had technical errors or unintentionally embarrassing moments, and we've even gotten some really charming and unique skits like the Robot Chicken and Puppet ones that really wouldn't have been possible otherwise. Well, for all of Nintendo's technical faults, at least their stuff worked infinitely better than when Microsoft tried to appeal to the casual market. The Kinect's unveiling to the world was far from perfect and certainly lessened a lot of the interest in controllerless gameplay. I personally believe that the Kinect was a good idea, but it was simply too ahead of its time and was many years off from being a perfected concept. That didn't stop Microsoft though from shoving it into most of their press conferences in the later years of the 360. Speaking of Microsoft, why do they insist on showing a car on stage every year for Forza? I'm serious, do Forza players instinctively feel the need to go out of their way to buy a brand new sports car whenever the newest entry of this yearly series comes out? Surely the sales of these cars aren't being boosted simply by them being on stage. Holy shit, the car's made out of Lego. I'll take 20 Forzas, please. To break off on a quick tangent here, you know what I hate the most about E3? When companies simply show a logo or cinematic of a game without any actual gameplay. It's so infuriating when developers do this, and they're all guilty of it. Nintendo with Metroid Prime 4, Bethesda with Elder Scrolls 6, Microsoft with Halo Infinite twice, and tons of other examples plague E3 with this ideology, and I'm so sick of it. I understand that game development isn't easy, but wouldn't wanting to wait for your game to be in a somewhat presentable state gameplay-wise make for a much more memorable reveal rather than a pre-rendered cinematic that 99% of the time won't be indicative of what the final product will be? I understand that this isn't at all an E3 exclusive issue, and for an already defined and recognizable series, it's somewhat fine. But if it's a never-before-seen game you want me to give a piss about, please just show me some actual gameplay. Like Bethesda's reveal Starfield would be more exciting if there was some gameplay, but if they only showed me space and a logo, what am I supposed to glean from it? In the end, E3 is far from a perfect event, but I still really enjoy watching each company's offerings every year, even with all of their faults. I love seeing dreams be made with Banjo getting to Smash after years of requests. I love the fake gamer speak companies include in their gameplay showcases. I love seeing Todd Howard swear every year. And I love it when Sony thinks it's a good idea to start their presentation in a tent, only to spend 10 minutes moving everyone to where the actual presentation is being held, simply because The Last of Us 2 has a section in a similar tent. Okay, maybe not that last one. With more and more companies wanting to do their own thing and therefore dropping out of giving traditional presentations, as well as E3 not even happening this year at all, it really feels like E3 is slowly coming to an end. If the event really does come to an end soon, I'll always cherish the memories and moments it's brought me over the years, and I'll definitely miss it dearly. E3 means a lot to me and I really hope it still continues for years to come, but just in case, I decided to purchase all of the cars that Microsoft ever showcased during their presentations to forever materialize my love of the event. But it was only until after they all arrived that I realized I just ended up getting a bucket of Hot Wheels cars instead.